Welcome to the channel if it's your first time here, and welcome back if it's not. Now in today's Fix It Friday, which is sponsored by AliExpress, I'm going to be looking at this. Not the bubble wrap, obviously, what's in the bubble wrap. And it is a console that I've never owned before. It is a Nintendo 64. Now when these came out, I think I was fully in my Sega Saturn era, but my sister's boyfriend at the time owned one, and he quite often lent it to me and let me play it. So although I've played them quite a lot, I've never actually owned one until now. I want to sort of relive some of those happy gaming days with sort of minimal expense. I got this from AliExpress, which is a Summer Kart 64. Now this is essentially an EverDrive cartridge which allows you to play backups of all your legally owned Nintendo 64 games. Even though I've never owned a Nintendo 64, I've got hundreds of legally owned games. So yeah, it's got an SD card there and you can put on your backups of your games, and I think kindly there's a few on here to start with, so we can try this out and see if it's good. Now I think this cost me around about £35, which is a steal. What I'll do is I'll put some coupon codes up on the screen, sort of in between my hands, that you can use to get some money off your next AliExpress purchase. If the codes on the screen have expired, then check down in the video description and I'll make sure there are some up-to-date ones in there long after the video's been released. But yeah, I want to play on this, but first we need to look at this Nintendo 64. Now I purchased this on eBay as faulty and not working, and I believe the fault is that it was dead, and I think I might know what the issue is, but until I get it out of the box I honestly don't know. Aha! Now this, I think, could be the root of our issues, because this is a Nintendo 64 power supply. This is the main event, the thing we're looking forward to the most. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, it's not in the best of condition. It's missing the expansion port cover. Maybe I can 3D print a replacement. But yeah, we've got a Nintendo 64. I think they're cool consoles, I really do. This is where the power supply actually goes into. Now because I suspect it's going to be a power supply issue, what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to plug this in and turn it on, because if the power supply is faulty, I don't want it sending the wrong voltages into the console. So I think our first port of call is looking at the power supply, and we can see what voltages are being kicked out of this connector here, and if they're the right voltages, then we know that this is working okay and the console's at fault. But I'd rather make sure we're getting the right voltages out of this first before we plug it into our Nintendo. So handily, on the front of the Nintendo 64 power supply, it actually shows you what pins output what. So essentially these pins here whack out the 3.3 volts, these pins here whack out the 12 volts, and these pins are grounds. So we know what voltage should be coming out of those, so it makes it easier to test. Hope our multimeter pins go down into the holes. No. Well, I've got these little guys that come out of my multifunction tester, so that might tell us something. Can use these to test the voltages, I guess. Hopefully they go in the holes deep enough. Well, that's a negative. Right, so let's plug in the power supply and see if we get any voltage. So this one is in the 12 volt line. Do we get 12 volts? No. Okay, let's test the 3 volt line. No, it doesn't seem to have anything on the 3 or 12 volt rail. Okay, so it does look like our power supply is dead. This is the particular model number and details of the power supply. Now I think even though they all have similar model numbers, I think they do vary quite dramatically. I remember Vince doing a video where he had a dead power supply and he bought about 6 different power supplies, and loads of them were different, but they all had the same model number. Now I guess what we've got to do now is crack this open so we can test it. I'll be completely honest with you, this is the first ever power supply I've ever looked at and worked on. I've got a few ideas what the fault could be, maybe. Don't try this at home, because even though it's going to be whacking out relatively small voltages from this output, inside here there will be components running at a lot higher voltage. So I am fully unplugged at the moment. I might have to do a bit of live work on this, I don't know. I think I will do some live work on it because I want to test that the voltages are actually not coming out of it. So to get into our Nintendo power supply, we've got these 1, 2 sort of game bitty screws. I think they're like a 4.5 hexy type head, maybe. Right, well, I suppose I should really double check the voltages directly here at these pins. So essentially the board is split into two. This is our high voltage side and this is our low voltage side. So yeah, I'm going to steer well clear of the high voltage side and just come around here and just double check that we definitely have no volts. Now I've unplugged it, as you can see, and I can actually see a really big capacitor right here. So let's see what voltage is on that capacitor. There we go. So it's at 40 volts and it's draining down rapidly. So that's good. So whilst I don't ever feel safe checking this out fully, I feel a little bit better knowing that that big capacitor there has dropped voltage quite rapidly. Right, let's get the main board out. It's screwed in? No, it's not screwed in. Yeah, but the capacitors look okay. They're not domed. I can't see any capacitor shmoo coming out of them. This being this particular board, I think I know what the fault is. So I'm quite excited. So yeah, we'll check these capacitors. Don't have any voltage in them. And we'll also check the fuse is okay. Right, so we'll check the fuse to start with. Obviously we want to hear a beep because it's in continuity mode, and continuity means that the fuse is intact. Fuse is intact, cool. Right, so I think this is one of our capacitors. Yep, that's drained. This is another one of our capacitors. Yep, that's drained. No voltage running through that. I feel like this has got a common fault that a lot of Nintendo 64 power supplies have, which is really exciting for me. And I think what it is underneath the shmoo here. Can you see all that shmoo? I think there's a resistor under there and that has gone bad. We need to desolder this sort of little board with the opto couplers on. And I think once that board is off and this sort of voltage regulator, I think that's what that is down there, is unscrewed, we'll be able to see that board a little clearer and hopefully get that resistor off. Like I said, I had no idea what type of power supply this was, but I've seen a lot online, and I think that was the problem in Vince's video that he made on a dead Nintendo 64, and I've read about it on Reddit as well, and I've seen several other fix-it videos. So it does seem to be a very standard fault with this type of power supply on the Nintendo 64. So hopefully, if you've got a dead Nintendo 64 with this power supply, this video will help, hopefully. Let's warm up the desoldering gun. Desolder the, well, I'm not going to count them, all those pins there. There's a lot of pins there. And that will desolder this sort of daughter board off the main board. So I've got out the microscope now just to make it a little bit easier for you to see what's going on. This job doesn't really require a microscope, although the resistor is quite small. So yeah, I'm just using it to make it easier for you to see all the solder connections that I'm desoldering Desoldering gun is ready and warmed up. Again, you don't necessarily need a desoldering gun. You could use some solder wick and a soldering iron. It's relatively straightforward to do, but I think the solder gun's going to be a little bit quicker for me. So while I'm desoldering this to remove the daughterboard, I'm going to shout out my channel members. Now, channel members have gone one step above subscribing to the channel, and they actually donate a small amount each month to help keep the lights on around here. If you want to become a channel member, then just scan the QR code in the corner of the screen. Anyway, our channel members at time of editing are the Kip fans, who are Matt Lovies, JRC Electrical, For the Burbs, Wayne Cornish, Scott Made a Thing, Michael Wood, Draco MacGyver, Rebecca, Tom Wood and Abigail. Then you have to get up super early to beat the Kip early birds, who are Tim Salt, Sorcerer Stan, Mark C, Rob Lynn and Will Bennett. And then I love this squad so much, they are my Kip lovers. They are Bella Webster, Stez Spix, Lawrence, Scott Kendall, Prost Retrofix, Chelsea B, DD Media Production, Jay Russell Retro Gaming and Lee Benz. And then we have got the nuttiest of them all. They are the Kip Nutters, and they are the incredible Becky Boobar, the gorgeous Alan Green, and the insatiable My Mate Vince fan club over on Facebook. Thank you to my Kip Nutters and all my other channel members. Your support is really appreciated. Anyway, I'm having a bit of trouble with these bent over pins. Might need to use the soldering iron to bend up these slightly bent pins. I imagine they're probably bent over in the factory to keep the board in place when being soldered. I reckon I've cleared off enough of the solder to be going on with. So here I'm just removing the screw from the voltage regulator. In hindsight, I didn't need to do this because it didn't actually get in the way, but you know, I did it anyway. Just going to see if I can get some of this shmoo off. Right, I reckon if I just run along the pins with this hot soldering iron, that will release the board. Our board is released, and I think our faulty resistor is under the shmoo here. Now, I don't know what causes this resistor to fail. I mean, I don't 100% know if it is this resistor that's the issue. Maybe it's something with it being covered in this shmoo. Maybe that sort of turns conductive or something. This stuff's really weird. It's like sort of grey bath sealant. It's horrible. Now, because I don't know what this sort of weird shmoo stuff is, I can't really replace it. I can't really put like hot melt glue there because it's on the voltage regulator, and that will get hot in itself, and that will just sort of, well, it'll just melt essentially. Well, I think what's probably best to do is to check that the two resistors here are actually the value that they should be. So we can measure them with the multimeter, and it should be fine to measure them in circuit. Now, this is 220 ohms up here, and this one is 1.5 kilo ohms. So we should get those values on here if those resistors are working properly. So let's try the 1.5 kilo ohms guy. I'm going to put one part of the test probe on that side, and then the other end down here. And there we go. That is 1.5 kilo ohms. So that resistor is okay. So if we check the top one here, which should be 220 ohms. So again, we'll check with the probe on one side up here, and then the other probe down at the bottom here. No resistance whatsoever. So it is, I think I can say with confidence, this 220 ohm resistor that is at fault. And yeah, that tiny resistor there has stopped the entire power supply from working. Now, I think it can be that either of these ones go bad. I've seen videos where people have had trouble with this one and this one. So yeah, it could have been either of those, but it seems that it's this one here. So I need a 220 ohm resistor. And I bought these from AliExpress ages ago, and just for sort of, you know, keeping as spares. And essentially they're books filled with resistors. I've got different sizes, and yeah, there's literally hundreds of surface mount resistors in here. I think the ones that are on there at the moment might be a 0603 size, and my replacements are a 0805 size. So a smidge bigger, but hopefully it should work. I think the next size I've got in the same vicinity is 0402, and obviously that's quite a lot smaller, but yeah, I've got the options if needed. So I'm just going to use the soldering iron to get them off. I should just be able to quickly heat both sides and sort of just nudge it out of the way. There's our tiny little bit of trouble. So here I'm just wicking away the old solder, and then I'm putting on a blob of new solder on one side. I find it easy with surface mount stuff with a soldering iron just to put a blob of solder on one side, then you can get the component into position and then put a bit of solder on the other side. And that's what I do. Might have done it. Right, so let's do what we did before and test it. So I'll put the probe on this end here and then the probe on the other end. 220 ohms, there we go. Definitely working. Cool. Right, so let's get this daughter board back onto the main board. So to solder the daughter board on, I'm just putting it on its side and just doing the two end pins so I can keep it steady and it doesn't fall out. And then I flip it over, put a bit of flux on it, and then solder all the pins and give it all a bit of a clean with some IPA. Not forgetting to screw back in the voltage regulator that didn't really need to be unscrewed. Then the power supply is ready to be assembled again, and hopefully will work when tested. Let's see. Right, I'm feeling pretty confident actually, which is rare because I don't ever feel confident in my fixes, and even more so that I've had two really bad ones recently that you probably won't ever see. So yeah, I'm not feeling great about this, but I'm feeling a lot more confident than I normally would. Let's plug in our multi out. Let's plug in our power supply. Hopefully there's no banging or popping. No, so far so good. Okay, well I've got the capture software set up behind me. So in theory, we should just be able to power on. 1, 2, 3. We have a red light. We have a red light there, look. Excellent. No video, hang on. Oh no. Oh no. That's so weird. Shouldn't there be something in there? Even just like a blanking thing. I think I know why it doesn't work. It's because there's nothing in this slot. There needs to be something in here or else it won't work. I think from the factory it came with like a jumper pack which kind of bridged together the connections that it needed to have, or you could buy an expansion pack which had more memory, and again that needed to be inserted. Something needs to be in here for the console to actually work. That's the problem. We need this hole to be filled. We don't have that. Might be that the eBay seller sort of took that out of here and sold it separately. To hopefully finish the video, I've got to order one of those. So I'm going to have to do that. And hopefully when we come back, we should be able to make this work. So back in a mo. Well, it's a few days later and our jumper pack has arrived. So in theory, it should go nicely into here. It does. So we should be ready to rock and roll, which is very exciting. I did learn a couple of things in the sort of gap while I was waiting for that to arrive, and that is the Nintendo 64 by default doesn't offer RGB output. So even though the connector on the back of it supports RGB and the Super Nintendo has RGB coming out of the same connector, the Nintendo 64 does not. And so unless you do an RGB mod on it, the signal coming out of it is quite poor, which is disappointing for what was meant to be a flagship 64-bit console. So maybe in future I might do an RGB mod on this, or maybe just an HDMI mod, possibly. Let me know in the comments if you've done any of those and what you think. I'm a bit new to sort of the world of the Nintendo 64 in this modern era. And also, something that I completely missed when I looked at it is there's a massive hole on the side. Yeah, the case isn't in the best of condition, so I might do a reshell on it. You can actually get replacement cases that, well, essentially look exactly like this one, or you can go for a transparent one like I did on my Super Nintendo. So yeah, I might treat this to a new shell and maybe make a video about that. We can now try out, finally, hopefully, our Summer Kart 64. Now, we'll just have a quick look around it before we do. So I think I showed you earlier, it's got a micro SD card slot there for the micro SD card that you can load your ROMs onto. It's also got a USB-C port on here because you can actually sort of plug this into your computer and use it, I think, in real time. And so you can put ROMs on it, you can update the firmware, and I think you can do development on it. So you can develop homebrew games for the Nintendo 64, which is mad. And also it's got this button on the back here, which is for ejecting the discs. Now, if you're wondering what the heck I'm on about, the Summer Kart 64, it actually supports Nintendo 64 DD games or disc images. So that is the Nintendo 64 disk drive that I don't think ever made it officially into this country. So yeah, I think there are some Nintendo 64 DD games on here as well, but I think you need to have the memory expansion in here rather than the jumper pack for those to work. So I won't be able to test those today, but yeah, this is a really cool cartridge packed with loads of features, and also it's open source software as well, so you can update it. There's a GitHub page with sort of updates and things like that, so that's pretty cool. And I think it's got like a status LED up in the corner there, so it flashes when there's activity. I guess we should see if we actually get any kind of output from this now, because obviously it worked. Well, it seemed to work. The power light came on, but we didn't get any video output because of that missing jumper pack. And I've also set up my monitor here so I can see what's going on without having to crane my neck and look at the capture on the computer behind me. So it's time. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. We have live. The Summer Kart flashed. There we go. Look. Oh, so we booted into the Summer Kart menu. Amazing. So we've got N64 USA games, N64 Power Games, disc support for the 64 DD. Let's just have a look at some of the stuff that's on there. So there's F-Zero X, F-Zero expansion kit, a Mario Artist, SimCity 64, Mario 64 disc version. Cool, that's pretty smart. Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, let's try and see if a USA game works on this, because obviously this is a UK console. Let's see what it does with a USA game. I mean, there's a lot of games on here. That's really cool. Okay, let's try F-Zero X, maybe. Let's see if that plays. Oh, okay, so that's cool. It's got a little bit of cover art on there as well. So if we press A, we can load and run the ROM. Boom. Wow, that loads super quickly. Like, it flashes the ROM in record time, and there we go, we booted into a game. So even though this is a PAL console, we can run NTSC games, and they seem to be running at 60 Hertz, which is full speed. That's amazing. Let's just try another USA game. Let's try the classic Super Mario 64. Here we go. Oh, I like the information it gives you. It tells you if the expansion pack is required or not on there. And I think you can actually press the L and Z buttons for extra info. Options do we have? Okay, so you can set the CIC type, which is the sort of lockout chip. You can set the save type. What's that? Oh wow, you can save it into different places. Smart. Set TV type. Yep, okay. Nice. Cool, so we can just load and run ROM. Flashes it onto the card. And then boom. Mario. Oh, that is so smart. It is actually really, really rubbish, the picture quality that's coming out of this. I'm using a composite cable and yeah, that looks bobbins. I still remember the first time I saw this, like in the flesh and played it. It was like, Mario? Because obviously up until that point, all we'd had was like 2D flat Mario. And yeah, it's not aged brilliantly in the way it looks. Yeah, and it's really, really quick as well. I'm sure there was like a little bit of a pause on the original when you went into the castle, but wow, yes. Oh man, that is amazing. That is so, so good. Okay, well, I'm not going to sit here playing because that would just be super boring. But we did it. We fixed this Nintendo 64 and we were able to get the Summer Kart 64 working in the end. And it does seem that the power supply, or this particular model of power supply for the N64 has a very, very common issue. And so if you've got a dead N64 and the power supply is testing dead, I imagine it's going to be one of these versions, and I imagine it's going to be one of those two little resistors. Like I said before, I don't have much knowledge on mods and things that you can do for this, so if you've got any that you can recommend, do let me know in the comments. But I'm really happy. My first job on a power supply, and that has gone beautifully well. Just remember, this video is for entertainment purposes only. If you attempt to do a repair on a power supply after watching this video, it is entirely at your own risk. But I think if you're careful, you should be all right. But I didn't tell you that. Actually, if you've got this far in the video, maybe put in the comments, why are you using a summer cart in the spring? Surely you should use a spring cart. I want to see if you're paying attention, and I really do appreciate those who are paying attention. So yeah, I'll give your comment a bit of love. But yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to say. I'm going to go and play some of these awesome games and enjoy this Nintendo 64 and consider what I'm going to do with it in the future. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But for now, it's game over.